Hi everyone. In this video I'll be speaking about attachment theory. In psychology, attachment theory is something that's been around for a while and kind of regained momentum in recent years as more and more therapists and professionals see its significance in understanding people's relationship issues, their personality patterns, as well as mental health diagnoses that in some way correlate with attachment issues. The idea of attachment relates to how a young child forms a bond or attachment with their caregiver or perhaps other people who are close to them at that young age. This begins with infancy, particularly the mother and how she's interacting with the child, attuning to the child's needs such as feeling safe, being nourished and comforted, and receiving some form of attention or affection. Different children are unique in a sense, and not every child will display the same level of need for those reassurances or those sources of comfort. This attachment process is in a way subjective. It has to do with both how the caregiver is responding to or treating that child and how that child is perceiving that behavior by the caregiver, and also how they're developing their particular method of coping with that. So there's the responses coming from the caregiver as well as the responses coming from the child. And there's a subjective nature to all of that. It's not a completely rigid, predictable process. You could have a parent who seems relatively detached and doesn't give a lot of attention to a child, and a child who actually doesn't really require a lot of attention. And that relationship would work out better than if there's a kind of poor match between the style of the parent and the temperament or needs of the child. In general, we would like to see some balance from both sides of that relationship. In terms of attachment patterns or styles, there's a few basic forms that many professionals identify. The first is the secure attachment, and that's where the caregiver is very closely attuned to the apparent or perceived needs of the child. So in a sense, they're doing a pretty efficient or effective job of providing that child a sense of security, a sense of safety and comfort, a sense that they're cared for, they're protected, that they have someone there they can depend on to support them. That would be the secure attachment. Now there are more than one form of insecure attachment. One of these is often referred to as the avoidant type. And in this case, you would tend to have a caregiver who really doesn't pay that much attention or give that much affection to the child. So they tend to be kind of distant or detached. They're not providing a lot of warmth, a lot of affection or nurturing to the child. When this happens, often that child will learn to cope with this by learning to not really expect that much affection or comforting from others. They tend to be more self-contained emotionally. They might become kind of intellectual, more thinking-oriented than feeling-oriented, and they like to keep to themselves to kind of figure out their own issues rather than seeking support from others. So that parent was, in a sense, detached and avoidant. And as a coping mechanism, this child will often learn to develop that same style themselves, to be kind of unemotional, lacking in that desire or need for bonding. Another insecure type of attachment is one that's often referred to as ambivalent or anxious. In this case, the caregiver often is inconsistent with their level of attention and affection. So sometimes they are very sensitive to the needs of the child, but other times they seemingly don't pay attention or are neglectful in some way to the apparent needs or desires of the child. When there's that inconsistent pattern, the child will often become uncertain about how people will respond to them, thus that ambivalence or anxiety. They want people to give them affection or attention, to nurture them because they have experienced that. So they know that that feels good, it feels nice, but at the same time they know that they often won't get it. So there's that ambivalence that often continues in their relationships. Since they do desire this closeness and affection, often they will behave in a kind of insecure way where they're constantly seeking approval, seeking to please the other person in the hope that the other person will give them that attention or affection. And that's why that person would often be perceived as anxious or insecure, because they have this need for being cared for being nurtured, yet at the same time they're afraid they won't receive it, so they may go out of their way in the attempt to get that affection from others. Another form of insecure attachment is the type that's labeled usually as disorganized. This disorganized pattern of attachment is one that sees kind of a dichotomy where the child, on one hand, has experienced some positive, secure type interaction with their parents. So they've had the parents show them affection, show them that they can be there to provide them safety and security, while at the same time that same parent has engaged in abusive or cruel behavior toward that child. So their source of safety and security is also their abuser, the person who in some way is threatening to them, who causes them fear. So this is kind of a paradox. How does their mind cope with this? And what they may do is dissociate. They may shut out from their own consciousness the abuse that has occurred. So in a way, they're detached from their own experience, from their own feelings, their own emotions and memories. And when this occurs, they'll often repeat this type of pattern in future relationships. In other words, they may be attracted to other people that they form relationships with who exhibit the same type of behavior, or a person will be very abusive toward them, and then that same person will try to shower them with affection. There are many relationships like this where the person has this strong bond with their abuser because they expect and trust that their abuser is also going to give them some affection and nurturing, and that's what they've become accustomed to. This, in a sense, is normal to them. So that's the disorganized form of attachment that can occur often in situations where a person has been abused by their parental caretaker, and at the same time they have had some type of secure bond with that same caretaker. Therefore, we can see how those early childhood experiences can set up patterns that persist into adulthood, where the person's psyche, their consciousness, is seeking to replay those same patterns that they had as a child, to give them new opportunities to shift, to change the way they think and feel about themselves and others, to perhaps learn healthier coping skills for dealing with other people, for processing how other people are treating them or responding to them. Many of you have heard of the law of attraction, where the patterns and energies that exist in our consciousness will continue to attract to us, to bring to us new experiences that reflect those particular patterns. Those patterns include our thoughts and beliefs, our feelings and emotions, the way we think about ourselves and about other people and the world around us. Those patterns often do get imprinted or developed from early childhood, and as we get older, they don't just dissipate or go away. We tend to carry those patterns with us and replay them and continue to replay them until we kind of reprocess our experience, until we can see the way we've developed, the way we've responded to other people in our life, and reconsider now as an adult whether our strategies of coping are really healthy for us at this time or not. They may have been functional in some way at that early age. They may have helped us survive or helped us fit in or be accepted in our family or some other environment. But we do wish to learn, grow, and evolve now to be more flexible in how we can adapt to our surroundings, to not just be stuck in one way of relating to other people. So we want to create kind of a dynamic balance where we can deal with multiple environments or situations, where we don't rely on a coping strategy that was started or developed just to handle one particular environment or one particular caretaker. I hope that this brief overview of attachment theory has given you some insight, some ideas about your life and your relationships. For those that are interested in holistic wellness and spirituality, psychology, and natural health, you can visit my website at www.phinsights.com. That's PHINSIGHTS.com. You can also view other YouTube videos I've produced on these topics. For now, I would like to wish each of you a wonderful day. Namaste.